I stayed home that day because my son Liam was sick. Feverish and weak, he clung to the couch with his blanket wrapped tightly around him. By mid-afternoon, he'd finally drifted off to sleep. The house was eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards. I sat at the kitchen table with a lukewarm cup of tea, scrolling through my phone to distract myself. The silence felt heavier than usual, as if the house itself was holding its breath. That's when I heard it. A faint rustle. At first I thought it was Liam shifting in his sleep, but the sound was too distinct, too deliberate. It was coming from the living room. My heart began to pound, but I forced myself to stay calm. I tiptoed to the doorway and peered into the living room. Everything seemed normal. Liam was still curled up on the couch, his little chest rising and falling steadily. The curtains were drawn, and the room was dim. But then I saw it, the edge of a shoe. It was barely visible, sticking out from underneath the couch. My breath caught in my throat. My mind scrambled for an explanation. A misplaced shoe, perhaps, but deep down, I knew better. The air seemed to thicken around me as I took a cautious step forward. I knelt down, my hands trembling, and peered under the couch. My blood turned to ice. There, in the shadows, was a man. His eyes met mine, wide and unblinking, his face gaunt and smeared with dirt. He was dressed in ragged clothes, his body curled tightly to fit in the cramped space. For a moment, neither of us moved. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The only thing that jolted me into action was the sound of Liam stirring. I scrambled backward, my heart slamming against my ribs. The man didn't make a sound as I stumbled into the kitchen. My hands shook so badly that it took me 3 tries to grab my phone. As I dialed 911, I heard a shuffling noise behind me. He was moving. The operator's voice was a distant hum in my ears as I grabbed Liam from the couch and bolted upstairs. I locked us in the bathroom, pressing my ear to the door while clutching Liam tightly. He was still half asleep, his fevered forehead resting against my shoulder. I could hear footsteps below, slow, deliberate. Then, nothing. The police arrived within minutes, though it felt like an eternity. They searched the house thoroughly but found no one. By the time they left, they seemed skeptical, their reassurances feeling hollow. But I knew what I'd seen. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak, every rustle felt like a threat. Liam was still feverish, his small body radiating heat as he slept beside me. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events in my mind. The next morning, I decided to check the living room again. The couch had been moved slightly during the police search, and as I pulled it further away from the wall, something fell out from underneath. A small pile of crumpled wrappers, a toothbrush, and a worn-out notebook. I opened the notebook with trembling hands. The pages were filled with erratic handwriting, nonsensical scribbles, drawings of the house, and chillingly detailed notes about my daily routine. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. He hadn't just been hiding under the couch that day. He'd been living there. For how long? I couldn't say. The police took the evidence seriously this time, but they never found him. Weeks passed, and though the locks were changed and security cameras were installed, the sense of safety in my home was gone. Every time I walked into the living room, I couldn't help but glance at the couch, half expecting to see those haunting eyes staring back at me. It was a quiet, uneventful night, just me and Bella, our aging German shepherd. My parents were working late, leaving me alone in the house. The neighborhood had gone downhill over the years. Boarded-up windows and graffiti-stained walls were now common sights. Yet Bella's presence always gave me a sense of security. I was sprawled out on the couch, half watching an old movie, when Bella's ears perked up. She stood, her body rigid, and let out a low growl. My first thought was that it was the wind. It often howled through the gaps in the old houses around us. Then came the noise. A bang echoed from the basement door, faint but deliberate. Bella's growl deepened, her hackles rising. My heart started to race as I muted the TV and strained to listen. Another bang. Louder this time. I grabbed my phone, holding it tightly as I inched toward the kitchen. Bella stayed close, her body tense and her eyes fixed on the basement door at the far end of the hall. I could feel the cold tiles under my bare feet, the air thick with unease. The banging grew more insistent, each thud reverberating through the house. Bella barked sharply, the sound echoing in the stillness. I whispered, "Quiet, girl." But she didn't stop. Her barks turned into a snarl, unlike anything I'd ever heard from her. I debated calling the police but hesitated. What if it was nothing? What if they didn't take me seriously? Instead, I texted my dad. "I think someone's trying to break in." A loud crash interrupted my thoughts. The basement door shuddered as if something, or someone, was ramming against it. Bella lunged toward the door, barking furiously. My legs felt like jelly, but I grabbed a kitchen knife, my grip slippery with sweat. The door rattled violently now, the sound filling the house. Bella positioned herself between me and the door, her growls deep and guttural. I could see the doorframe beginning to splinter. My mind raced with every horror scenario I'd ever heard. And then, silence. The banging stopped as abruptly as it had started. Bella remained on high alert, her ears twitching. The quiet was more unnerving than the noise. I held my breath, listening for any sign of movement. Suddenly, the kitchen window shattered. Shards of glass scattered across the floor as a figure in dark clothing climbed through. Bella didn't hesitate. She launched herself at the intruder, her teeth sinking into their arm. The man screamed, struggling to shake her off, but Bella held on. "Get out," I yelled, my voice trembling. The intruder managed to shove Bella off, but she was relentless, snapping and lunging. I could barely process what was happening, my body frozen with fear. The man stumbled backward, tripping over the broken glass as Bella advanced. He scrambled to his feet and bolted out the window, disappearing into the night. Bella barked after him, her chest heaving. I locked the window with shaking hands, my heart pounding in my ears. Bella returned to my side, her eyes still sharp and focused. I sank to the floor, pulling her close. When my parents came home, they found me sitting on the couch with Bella at my feet, the broken glass swept into a corner. My dad called the police, who took a report but offered little comfort. "Probably a random break-in," they said, as if that made it any less terrifying. In the days that followed, Bella never left my side. Her age no longer seemed to weigh her down. She was vigilant, always watching, always ready. The thought that haunted me most wasn't the intruder himself, but the moment before Bella attacked. How he'd looked at me through the shattered window, his eyes cold and calculating. I realized how easily things could have ended differently if Bella hadn't been there. She wasn't just my dog anymore. She was my protector, my savior, and my constant reminder of that night.